Welcome to another episode of the Online Prosperity Experience podcast. You're about to hear your host, Prosper Taravinga's powerful digital marketing strategies and actionable tactics that you can use right now. Prosper has helped more than 50,000 people from over 10 countries to create meaningful businesses that are profitable and enjoyable. Listen to this podcast so that you too can build your own business with less stress and overwhelm. Let's get started.
Help your customers to actually buy from you. You see, as coaches, consultants, and small business owners, we actually take for granted that our customers know how to buy from us. We actually think they know who should be involved in the buying process and why they need to be sitting on a Zoom call with you so that they can get to understand what it is that you do, etc. And we actually assume that they know how to get approval and how to maybe write the contract or how to actually issue an order in order for you to get hired. Have you ever been to a business where you're chasing a lead and then all of a sudden they then don't know how else to refer you to their to their superiors or people in the C-suite or the actual people in the organization that make the purchases of maybe our consulting, our training, our information, or our expertise. Or maybe we want to go there and actually be on a paid speaking sort of arrangement with that business. You see, while we are building our businesses, we tend to forget that maybe we are the only person who makes the decision within our our business, whereas our customers or our clients actually have some sort of organizational structure or business structure or like a people strategy within their business. Do they know who needs to be involved in the decision-making process? And half of the time, it could be our job if we actually adopt systems thinking as coaches and consultants. Now, you might be surprised, why is Prosper going on about systems and everything else like that? How else can you then grow your business to actually compete with the big players? All right, you need to put yourself in a position to win. I can understand right now as a coach, consultant, or small business owner, or maybe as an entrepreneur, marketing yourself is just one aspect of running a successful business. You have to go from hiring and managing new staff, balancing the books and driving growth, and a whole lot more. And it all feels like a constant balancing act where you're being pulled in multiple different directions all at once. And if you are like me, you also have to be involved in the sales process. You also have to be involved in creating the podcast like I am. But at the end of the day, your real goal is just to help your clients. You want to be able to spend as much time as possible changing people's lives and solving problems. And you don't want to waste countless hours each week trying to navigate the whole complex world of office politics. And you certainly don't want to spend yet another minute maybe on the phone having to beg people that can't make decisions to hire your services. Fortunately, you don't have to. If you adopt systems thinking where you actually understand the whole business strategy, the organization strategy, and the people strategy of that particular organization that you're working with. And half of the times, the people within that industry don't quite know, how to navigate around it in order for them to get something approved or maybe for people to buy your consulting or your training. All right, so let's put it back a notch. You see, I have two kids, two adorable girls. If you get lucky one day, you probably see photos of them on the internet there. You see, when my now 7-year-old was small, we took her to daycare. All right. And what this meant, particularly for me, was, all right, we've got one kid, daycare. There's going to be a lot of fevers and a lot of visits to the doctor's office or to the, to nurses or some clinic or whatever. And as a parent, I was able to detect even, detect every threat of a fever. All right. However, in order for me to get rid of that fever, I had to actually rely on the doctors to discern whether the fever was caused by either a virus or bacteria, and if what part of the body that bacteria was sort of infecting. And then the doctor, using her knowledge of how the body functions, will be able to prescribe a solution to dealing with the root cause of that fever. Now, you may be thinking right now, what does that have to do with consulting or being a coach? Well, the difference between a parent and a doctor is that the doctor is actually able to understand the human body as a system, as well as better discern the root causes of whatever illness our kids would be going through, and then prescribe a long-term cure for that illness, whether it's long-term or whatever it is. But then they can analyze what's happening in front of them, which is in a diagnostic sort of setup. You just don't knock in the doctor's office and then they just look at you and they're like, yeah, you've got a headache. No. They diagnose what the cause of that illness is, and then they prescribe a long-term cure. And similarly, the difference between a good consultant and a great consultant is that a great consultant is actually better at understanding an organization that they're going to be reaching out to as a system, not as an individual person that has accepted your LinkedIn request. And as better, once you understand an organization as a system, you're better able to then discern what are the root causes of this organization and what challenges are they going through, so that you can diagnose and develop for them a planned long-term solution which will help them solve their problem. And that's what organizations out there are looking for. That's what our customers are looking for. They're not looking for consulting, training, or information or expertise. They just want somebody to help get them rid of their problems so that they can move and become profitable. All right. So when you understand how the organizational system works, you literally can walk into any business and then see whether your services could be, useful to them. And obviously, let's maybe bring it down a little bit, because some people might not quite understand. It's very different in different areas. But an organization is commonly defined as a group of people working towards a common purpose. Okay, so when you maybe friend request somebody on LinkedIn that has got a title within the business, they might not be the decision owner. They are part of an organization, and they are going to need someone to then approve of that expertise that you want to share with them. Okay, so this broad definition just provides a simple description of what an organization is, kind of like describing a car as a mode of transportation with tires and an engine. You cannot use one without the other. So both entities are far more complex than just the definitions that we want to believe of ourselves, that if we are in touch with the HR people, then that means they are the people that are in charge with the teaching or the well-being of the organization. And in fact, when you actually look at it, the business in and of itself does not operate without the organization and without the people, and then without the leadership and without the culture. And if you don't know and understand this whole organizational system, it will be so difficult for you to actually start reaching out to a lot of people and actually close your customers. So you need to be in a position to help your customers, actually navigate their business, because they might not quite know who needs to be involved when you sit down with them and have a meeting. All right. So as you will notice, all right, there's the business strategy, which is basically how the business actually gets its goals and objectives and its values. And then there's also the organizational setup, which is basically the placement of power, of authority, the hierarchy, the organizational chart, the whole division of labor that makes business happen within that business. All right. You need to have an understanding and a working knowledge of how all of these pieces come together in order for you to get your consulting, your training, and your information approved. All right. You need to know who's got the power and the authority to sign checks, who's got the power and authority to implement, who's got the power and authority to make sure that you receive your money at the end of the month, or whatever payment strategy that you have. And then pretty much after that, the people strategies. Okay. You now need to also have an understanding and a working knowledge of what competencies are required and what individuals are needed within that organization in order for them to actually understand and comprehend what it is that you're talking about. And some of us just go straight to the leadership of the business. Sometimes the leader doesn't even know what's happening all the way at the bottom, and you need to have a fully working understanding of what your services and what your products will do within a business, and you need to be speaking from that level. Now, this whole knowledge is something that you have to study, and I'll tell you something. Every organization has these components, whether leaders are aware of them or not. Okay. And the key to maybe organizational effectiveness is increasing the level of competency and understanding of how all of these pieces come together. The greater alignment that you have and the greater knowledge that you understand, the better your chances of getting approved as the consultant or the coach for that particular industry. Now, regardless of your area of expertise, you could be a human resources consultant, a finance consultant, marketing consultant, sales consultant, operations, all of that stuff. If you consult to an organization, you need to understand how an organization functions. And when you know and you can, capitalize on this knowledge, you will then be able to direct the organization in and of itself, or the people within the organization, in order for them to approve of your proposal, or to actually hire you, on a retainer and things like that. All right. So why am I saying this? Is because every time I speak to coaches and consultants, and I then ask them, who's your ideal target market? And they're like, oh yeah, businesses in this industry, that are making this much revenue. And I'm like, okay, there are people within an organization. Who are the people that you need to reach out to, and what is their role and capacity to move the needle towards your proposal acceptance? And half of the time, then they then start, I don't know, yeah, that's where you come in, and they try to be a smarty aleck around it. You have to understand that within organizations, there's people, there's structure, there's a way things are done. All right. And if you understand that there's a common ground, you've identified your target market, you can then separate the pain and actually prescribe the product, giving them full payoff. Because once you understand why each and every component of what you're bringing to them, your consulting, your training, your information, or your expertise, it will then make it super, super easy for you to, for people to, accept your proposal. And we tend to take for granted that our customers know how to buy. We think they know who should be involved, within the whole decision making process, and why. And we assume that they actually know how to get approval, or how to contract, or how to issue an order. 9 times out of 10, as complex as it might, as easy as it might sound, it is a very complex strategy. The reality, unless they're in a role where they are buying frequently or purchasing the same kind of product that you're wanting to put out there, they don't know that any of these things. And yet we as consultants, we assume that the people that we're talking to do. And we are now going to bombard them and flog them with emails, calls, and everything else, when they actually don't know what to do or how to get to the next step. Okay. Too often our customers actually get derailed in their buying journey. They want to buy, they need to buy, but they don't know how to navigate the process and the hurdles that are put down by their own organizations. Have you ever thought of that aspect? Have you ever looked at it in that sort of spectrum? Because we know the majority of the buying journeys just simply end with no decision being done. Okay, we call all these people, we're sending them emails, and yet we get nothing in return. Zero, nothing. All right. And that decision is not made simply because they don't know what the next step would be or who needs to be involved in the decision making process. And we know this has little to do with maybe selecting you as a vendor, but it's about them aligning the buying team and actually navigating the buying process. Our customers need our help. Do we know how to help them buy from us? Because if we're going to help them reach whatever decision or maybe buy and implement a solution, they definitely need our help. And here are some of the things that they probably don't know that we take for granted, right? When you're sitting down with a customer or with a prospect, do they know who else should be involved in the buying process? Because there are a few cases where people, we're speaking with, maybe we're sitting with them and we think they're the only people that need to be involved. But in a complex B2B buying journey, which typically, impacts several parts within the organization, we need to guide our customers and we need to provide them the insight so that they can see what we can actually do for the organization, and we can pinpoint the relevant stakeholders or who else should be involved and what other functions need to be present in order for us to have a meaningful meeting, and maybe what other parts might be impacted by the solution and what results would then emanate. Because if we just go in without knowing all of these scenarios and organizational setups, we're setting ourselves up for failure. All right. Our customers don't know what questions they should be asking. So this is where your podcast, your videos come into play, because you're now educating them on what to want, and you're providing them with value in order for them to be empowered to ask you these questions, and then also be able for them to defend you in the boardroom when they stating your case. What things should they be considering in making any decisions within the business? Because most of us, focus on educating them about our product, but we also need to guide them through these issues within their own organizations. We need to help them spot when we are needed. Okay, as an accounting professional, I don't know if this example is going to sit well, but as an accountant, we need to be able to help our CEOs or our our people that we reach out to see when expenses are going above normal. Maybe some people will just think, we can just cover it down with the profits that come in a little bit later on. But maybe there's something that needs to be done before the profit starts kicking in, or before, they are in debt, or some sort of scenario that is a worst case scenario for the business. How do you teach your customers or your audience to spot when you are needed to be brought in for consulting? Because we're leaving money on the table if we're not teaching customers on how to actually notice when they need to pick up the phone and call us. Because some people don't quite even know that they have a problem already. And maybe before the deal has been done, what do they need to do to get approval for them to move forward? Even if they've got money budgeted within, or maybe they've got a budget, or they've been allocated some sort of money, there are a number of things that they might need to get the approval in order for them to spend that money. Maybe the budget is only for a one-off and you are asking for a retainer, and some companies don't want to go into some sort of a subscription. How do they go in and make sure that they get the approval for you to stay on a retainer? Or they might need to put together a business case in order to justify the investment. And they may have to put together maybe a risk analysis. They may have to put together an implementation plan and then negotiate the resources that actually need to support the implementation. Are you going to be doing the implementation through and through, or does the company have to then recruit other people in order to follow through with the implementation? Because if you're going to cost the business money and then they have to add extras or unseen expenses, then you know what? They're going to cut it off before they've even started. So we need to know how all of these ties in together and how we can actually, help our customers make sense of the solutions that we're presenting in front of them. And related to the previous point, how does this initiative support the corporate strategic objectives? Some years ago, I was working with a client and they won a very large deal. And the top executive of the business unit, supported the decision and had funded, the project that was in place. But they had to go to corporate for a final approval. And the approval was withheld until the team could demonstrate how the initiative that they were doing contributed to at least one of the top 3 corporate objectives. Each and every one of the bosses is trying to save their behind and to look good and to not get fired. So how is your coaching? How is your consulting? How is your story? How is your information going to be part and parcel of what is the maybe 3-year or 4-year or 5-year plan of that organization? Because if we don't know that, we can't then embed ourselves into what the organization is looking to do in the future. All right. Not a lot of us think about this. We just think about what are we selling to our audience there. And the more we get to understand the organizational layout of the businesses that we're working in, we can now start creating diverse recurring revenue streams that will actually skyrocket the profitability and ensure that our businesses remain 100% bulletproof. I don't know about you, but we've just been through a big market downturn. We've had the global pandemic and we've had sweeping lockdowns. And if you create your own recurring revenue streams within, certain businesses and certain organizations, don't you think you'll be able to survive whatever downturn that might be coming through? So we really need to teach our customers how to, put us across and how to sell them by us understanding, and thinking in systems instead of just thinking of what it is that we are providing out there. And then there's one other thing. Once they've made a decision, how do they actually buy from you? How do they move forward? I mean, too often they, because they don't deal with these issues daily, they don't know how and who and how to get people maybe from sourcing to procurement involved. They don't know how to work with maybe the legal department and the contracting department. Maybe there's compliance, there's quality that needs to be checked, there's logistics, all of that stuff. Have you made it easy for people to or made systems within your business to make it easy for people to just pay you? While all of this sounds silly, one of my clients almost got derailed. All right, they were selling a very large piece of equipment, and one of the buying team had figured out actually how to get the equipment into their facility, but it turned out they needed to cut a hole in the roof and lift parts into the building and then assemble the piece of equipment inside. I mean, as compelling as a problem and the customer seeks to address is, unless they buy similar situations very frequently, they probably don't know how to buy. They probably don't know how to navigate the buying journey, and they probably don't know who to ask in terms of logistics and, how to actually solve the actual problem. Sometimes, however, they think they do. They do this just out of arrogance, but simply not knowing. And if we are already a cut above the rest, and that's why it pays to be experienced, because we've already had maybe similar scenarios with, other customers, and we can create great value with our customers by helping them navigate the buying process with us, because we already have an end-to-end solution and we know how to mitigate any disasters or any risk that might come through, just because we already have a working understanding of the organizational structure of other businesses we've worked with, the people structure, and every other thing or component or resource that is needed in order for us to actually get paid. Because when they aren't involved in the right peoples or the organizations, then when it comes to critical issues, our customers don't understand all the details, activities that actually make it happen, and we can create great value by helping them navigate throughout the whole process. All right, when we teach our customers and educate them, we're inspiring them to want more, be more, and have more. And when we teach them about what others have done and what they might need to consider as part of their process, it then makes it easier for them and puts more value in the work that we're doing. You know why? Because we've just saved them time, money, and effort in, or maybe a learning curve in something that they would have had to pay more money in order for them to understand or to actually have working. How many times have you maybe purchased something and then eventually you notice that you're going to need extras in order for it to work? Doesn't that just make it annoying for you? Because as us as coaches and consultants, obviously once we help our customers develop management systems and effective teams around what we're doing, we make ourselves invincible. But if we just leave them with information and find somebody else that can then implement, we no longer get paid for information anymore. We get paid for implementation. All right? So we need to understand, how do we navigate organizational systems? How do organizations navigate their people systems and systems? How do we plug ourselves in so that we are not a difficult person to work with? And once we have figured out who we need to be reaching out to, we help them navigate their own organizations and we shorten the buying cycle. And in some organizations, especially the fact that people are now working remotely, people are working in silos and they might not even know who else needs to get involved in the buying process and who else needs to be informed of whatever changes might need to be happening. But if we're developing the account well, we may actually know this better than what our customers are doing. And that's why account marketing is such an important factor these days. Let me tell you something. Buying is never easy. Have you ever tried buying stuff online and then it's probably the wrong size and you need to return it and they've got a really awkward or difficult returning process? But if we help our customers succeed, we're definitely helping ourselves, because once we embed ourselves within the business, within the organization, and we actually understand the business more than they understand it themselves, guess what? They assume we've got solutions to a whole lot more other things. And once we are now indispensable, guess what? We now have a business of our own that is profitable and enjoyable. And when we help our customer navigate their entire buying process, guess what? It's more ching, ching, ching for ourselves. So just looking at it, obviously now you understand we actually tend to take for granted that our customers know how to actually buy from us. And that's why it's super, super difficult for us to, actually start making businesses that are profitable. You know why? Because maybe we're just sending out, hundreds of emails from people without them getting, responding back to us, because they don't know what they need to do with the information that you're sending to them. You're probably cold calling some people and they're just only nice enough not to hang up in your face, but they don't do anything about it. You know why? Because they don't know what to do with the information that you're sending to them. And you're probably spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on ad spend without generating any qualified leads, because you don't know who within the organization needs to get the information that you're putting out there. So when we understand that we've identified our target market, we then clarify our message in order to really engage that audience and really educate them on what to want and how to want it and how to actually make purchases from us. Like I keep repeating, we tend to take for granted that our customers know how to buy from us or what it is that they need to be buying and what questions to ask us in order to get the most of our, consulting, our training or information that we're putting out there. Sometimes it can feel like no one wants to buy what you're selling. And when you're relying on your business as a coach or consultant to pay rent and put food on the table, it can put an enormous strain on your emotions and you're terrified and having to give up on your dreams. Maybe you want to return to a safe 9-to-5 with your tail tucked between your legs if you can't bring in new clients. Have you ever thought that maybe your customers don't know how to actually buy from you? We think they know who needs to be involved in the buying journey or in the process and why. And we actually assume they know how to get maybe approval and how to maybe get a contract or how to issue out an order, but they don't. Maybe you need to fix that aspect. And once you have an understanding of how it actually works, because every organization has these silos and components where leaders are probably not aware of what's actually happening. Well, as you have noticed, I'm more than happy to take a look at what it is that you're creating, for your business out there. And I really want to help you start, scale, and grow a business that's profitable and enjoyable. And obviously, as you can see, once you have this in place, you can start creating diverse recurring revenue streams, and you can actually skyrocket your profitability and ensure that your business is 100% bulletproof, right? Get on a call with us and we can give you all of this actionable inspiration, information that helps you make sense of the world around you and lets you create a unique position in the hearts and minds of your ideal customers so that they can't wait to work with you and actually pay you what you're actually worth. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, let's continue the conversation in the Live Long Digital community. Become a Live Long Digital community member today. This community is for ambitious entrepreneurs and small business owners with the drive to take control of the future of their businesses and achieve huge success without stress and overwhelm. As you heard, Prosper can help you by teaching you marketing strategies that work. So look no further than the Live Long Digital community of entrepreneurs and highly successful business owners. Join our community today. Find us on www.community.livelongdigital.com.au. Network with other driven entrepreneurs and find the expert guidance you need to take your business to the next level. www.community.livelongdigital.com.au